So you have your spring wire channel and it's straight, and you have your bow and it's curved. So how are you gonna get this straight channel on your curved bow? I'm about to show you now.
The best way to attach greenhouse plastic is spring wire channel, and it's always advisable to install the channel over the top of your end bow so your end wall cover and top cover greenhouse plastic can be installed as separate pieces. But spring wire channel comes in straight pieces between 6 and 12 feet long, and even though it's comprised of aluminum, which bends a little easier, getting it to bend to your bow can be a bit cumbersome. So I'm going to attach spring wire channel to the top of this end bow, and I'm going to share 3 simple tips during this video to help you out in this process. And the only materials you'll need when installing spring wire channel over top of your end bow is the spring wire channel itself and 5/16 inch hex head drive self-tapping tech screws, either 3/4 inch or 1 inch long. And we're only going to be using a drill driver with a 5/16 inch hex head driver bit. You may also need a reciprocating saw or a hacksaw to cut the channel during this process. This is how I always start my run of single channel. I rest one end on the top lip of the metal baseboard and use one foot to keep pressure on it. Then I pick a spot on the straight part of the sidewall above the ground post to drive my first tech screw. I do this first screw above the ground post so it's just a little easier to drive in. Then I go down to the start of this piece and I drive a tech screw through the channel and into the ground post and bow, 1 inch in from the channel's end. I then repeat this process every 10 to 12 inches on the straight sidewall until I get to the bend. This is where my first simple tip is used. We've already driven a number of screws in the straight part of the sidewall, so we know it's firmly installed. I'm just going to use leverage by walking up the ladder and pushing down on the channel. This bends and conforms the channel enough to get it close to the bend of the bow. Now it's not touching the bow, but it does help relieve some of that tension. The next tip, and this is the big one in my opinion, is that I'm going to drive screws closer together when installing on a bend. If you think about it, every time you drive a screw, it pulls the channel closer to the bow, making the next screw a little bit easier to install. As you can see in this close-up, I've driven the screws at the bend about every 3 inches or 5 inches apart from one another. Once I get past this bend, I can return to the normal screw spacing. My third tip is don't end a piece of channel directly on a bend. Terminating a piece of channel on a bend is much more difficult because you don't have any leverage. It's much easier to keep the next piece of spring wire channel in line with the first if you're running them one after another on a straight section of hoop. You'll repeat these steps and apply the 3 tips I just went through until you get to the baseboard on the other side of the structure. Once I've completely installed the channel, I like to gently fold the ends down with a claw hammer so they don't cause small tears in the roll-up sides when I'm operating those in the future. At this point, many of you will now need to install your end wall and top cover greenhouse plastic, and no worries. We have how-to videos on those steps as well, which I'll make sure I link in the description below. If you like the way our spring wire channel installed during this video, I'll include a direct link to where you can find it in the description below as well. And if you like watching videos on season extension and season extension structures that can save you time and money, consider subscribing to our channel. And thanks for watching.